Hi everyone, I'm Heather Peterman, and I'm coming to you today to talk to you a little bit about a topic that I think we need to raise awareness about, and we need to bring a new level of concern about. It's a problem that is afflicting women really across the board, but particularly women who live in caregiver roles. And not just caregiver in the sense of working as a healthcare professional, but also to mothers who are caring for children of any age, to daughters who might be caring for elderly parents or other family members with an illness. And then also, of course, our caregiver providers who are working as nurses, doctors, practitioners. I'm an acupuncturist and I work in a hospital-based setting, and this is something that I'm seeing in my practice, both with myself historically and with other practitioners that I work with. And this topic that I want to talk to you about is compassion fatigue. We hear a lot about burnout these days, and we hear a lot about self-care, but I think we're missing the connection of compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue is what happens before the burnout sets in, and it's the warning signal that lets you know that you're in trouble and you have to slow down. Compassion fatigue is something that can lead to apathy. It can lead to depression. I work in a large healthcare organization, and unfortunately we lost 2 nurses recently to suicides because the level of stress and demand that's put on people that are working in these roles to constantly give of themselves when they never have a chance to refill their own cup can be tremendous. And I'm not saying that that's why these women felt that they needed to take their own life, but I am saying that there are things that need to be done and looked at to help people maintain their vitality and their strength and their wellness when they are working in these roles. So you can see I'm outside today. It's kind of windy. I'm sitting in the grass. I'm with the trees. It's my day off, and I'm here with my daughter in the park, just recharging and fueling and being in the sunlight and the outdoors. That's something that's very cleansing to me, and it works for me to recharge myself. So I'm sitting out here today, and when I started working in my current role, I work in oncology as an acupuncturist. Compassion fatigue was on my radar then. I knew that I would see a lot of sadness, that I would see death, that I would see things that would take over part of my soul. And when I talked to my department director about it, who is a mentor and somebody that I really look up to, he brought up things like taking time for self-care and taking time out and really taking time to nourish our own garden and cultivate our own shen. Shen is the word that we use for spirit in Chinese medicine, to protect our vitality. And these are all good practices, which is why I'm out here today, as I said. But I don't think that that's enough. And I think that there needs to be more definition around things that we do to protect ourselves and set boundaries. That first year that I started working in oncology, I joined that team after being in private practice for 10 years. So I was a seasoned practitioner. I had certainly been exposed to death before, and I had been in a caregiver role both with my own family and with my patients beyond that 10 years of starting to practice. So for the majority of my life, I have been in that caregiver role. But I still was not prepared for the level of sadness that would take me over after working in infusion and with cancer patients for a year. So after a year, what I noticed was that I started to get very, very sick. I started to get disconnected. I started to get short with my family. I had 2-year-old twins at home who at the time that I started in that oncology role were just babies. I was just coming back from maternity leave. And so now they were about a year old and walking, and they needed all kinds of guidance and support. And 1-year-old twins are just about as wild as can be. So when I would come home tired and fatigued, and I had a patient who was very sick or who went to the hospital or found out that their cancer was back, I didn't always have what I needed to give to my little 1-year-olds. So I noticed that I wasn't being the mom I wanted to be. I was so far from the true, authentic version of myself that I wanted to be And that sent me into a spiral, and I knew that I had to make a change. I started thinking, I need to get out of here. I can't work in oncology, and I couldn't think of what else to do. I went back to the training that I had been through, and I've luckily had the opportunity to work with Native American medicine women and do sweat lodges, and I had a lot of self-care techniques. So I did the smudging, I did the essential oils, I did all of those things, and it wasn't enough. So I did back down, and I minimized my hours in practice as far as oncology, and I focused more on my general practice. There was one lady in particular whose story kind of kicked me into that decision. She was a beautiful lady who had been fighting breast cancer for 14 years, and she was doing wonderful, and she was getting ready to retire, and she had wanted to retire for many years. And so I did an acupuncture treatment for her the week of her retirement, and she had an RV packed up, and her husband were leaving to travel the U.S., how they had planned to do, and it was a celebratory time because she had gotten this far with breast cancer. So we sent her off, and I believe that was on a Friday, and I came back to work, I think it was Tuesday, and back to work to find out that she had passed away over the weekend, that the disease process had taken over, and she faced the end of her life. And that was it for me. That's when I broke. At that time, I was seeing probably about 20 patients a week in oncology, and during those months, there was averaging about 1 to 3 patients every 2 weeks that were passing away, and I felt like part of me was passing with them, part of my spirit was holding on, and I was having nightmares. I was having just a horrible time processing. So that, on top of the anxiety and the short-temperedness at home, it was just too much. So that compassion fatigue pulled me away from that role. And I did continue to work in oncology, but limited hours compared to what I was doing. And I went to my general practice. And during my time in general practice, I went back to the basics, and I started cultivating some regular practices that fuel me, and I started doing the work. I started doing the work to explore what it means to work with the chronically ill and to work with people who have chronic disease and who are facing terminal diagnosis. And during that time, I came into a paradigm shift, a mindset shift that allowed me to see the blessings in the work that I was doing, and not the sadness of the patient passing, but the joy that we give them by providing such amazing days that they would not have had if we weren't doing this work. So after a year of cultivating these practices, I decided to jump back into oncology with more hours and more days. And I was able to go back in with an open mind and an open heart, but also some very secure boundaries and protections to protect my own spirit and my own vitality. And when I went back in, I remember I had a wonderful man who I always look back and I smile on. It was a wonderful patient who was a pancreatic cancer patient, metastatic pancreatic cancer, which is not a good prognosis. And he had neuropathy that was so horrible that he couldn't hold a sandwich to eat, and he couldn't walk across the room without needing to grasp on to hold something. And when I met with him, he said, "Heather, I know this disease process is going to take me. I know it is. But I want to dance with my daughter at her wedding." And so we came up with a treatment plan, and I worked with him. And I worked with him 3 times a week, so I really got to know him. And I really genuinely cared for this patient. And we got to the fall when his daughter's wedding was, and he danced with his daughter on her wedding. And they had a beautiful day, and they took beautiful pictures. And they have these beautiful memories. And shortly after, about 2 weeks later, he passed. He passed on into the spirit realm. And when he did, I was a little sad that I wouldn't see him anymore. But nothing in me was taken with him. I didn't give up a part of my own Shen or my own vitality. I was instead recharged and fueled because I knew that I had given him that wish, and I had given him days that he wouldn't have had. And for me, that has been so empowering, and it has allowed me to do the work that I need to do. And I am able to now spend days at the park with my kids, and I'm not short-tempered, and my boys now are 3 years old, and I also have a 1-year-old daughter who came into the picture because I had gotten myself so healthy. And we have these beautiful days together, and I can be understanding and empathetic. And sure, I still lose my temper with them from time to time because I'm a mom, and who doesn't? But it's not because I'm bringing my work home, and it's not because my cup is empty, and it's not because I'm allowing somebody else to take my vitality. It's just because I'm having a bad day as a mom. So why I'm talking to you about this today is because I really want to share these practices that I've come up with, and I want to share my stories, and I want to be raw and authentic together as practitioners and as women, and I want to address this issue, and I want to help practitioners across the healthcare field and moms across the world and other women across the world to come up with ways to cultivate their own vitality and to live and be the best authentic version of themselves they can be. So you can follow me. You can follow me on YouTube under Heather Peterman, and you can check out my website at heatherpeterman.com. And I'd love to chat. I'd love to talk. I'd love to connect. I'd love to come up with a tribe of us across the world who can work together to make these changes. I'm going to be talking about essential oils and mindfulness and a whole slew of practices that you can take or leave and you can incorporate and make your own. And hopefully together we can be a change, and we can make a shift, and we can be healthier, and we can be happier, and we can cultivate resiliency, and we can live on to do the things that we do the best. So thank you for spending some time with me today, and hopefully we'll get to talk more soon. Bye-bye.